We have had a wild couple of days of podcasts. I don't really know what I'm about to get myself into, so what's up?
It's not that bad. It's not bad. No.
You say that, and then
Okay, so this is actually I wanted to share this perspective with you. I recently had a client, we were talking about boundaries.
okay,
And I've noticed that I have quite a different take on boundaries than other people. And so I shared with her my take on boundaries and felt like she had the light bulb moment. Things have been going well since we had the conversation. So I was like, okay, this is something that, maybe we need to share with our audience and help them with boundary work. So,
okay.
and I was really interested, I'm always fascinated by your perspective as well. So I'm kind of interested in what you think about this.
Go on.
So she was talking about she went on some type of family vacation, right? And so there was all of these people in her extended family and her husband's extended family that she was going to be around. And she was talking about how because of past situations with them, she really has to have very strong boundaries.
I feel
Okay.
that.
Okay. I think most people can kind of feel this,
Yeah.
especially those of us that are doing like generational work and breaking generational
Yes. There's
uh
immediately people that I think of in my own family that I'm like, whoop, here's my cloak. You were saying,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I get that.
So she was talking about this and she was rather frustrated because she had this interaction with them where she thought she had laid down these really strong boundaries and they were just crumbling and walking all over her boundaries.
Okay.
And so she was expressing to me this frustration that she had where she feels like no matter how much work she does, no matter how clear she gets with her boundaries, no matter how strong she holds them,
Mhm.
it seems like it backfires, everything falls apart. The more she lays down the boundary, the more they push back, right? And so it was in this moment that I realized that other people see boundaries as something that is external, meaning this is a boundary that they give other people.
Mhm.
So they'll say, like you're not allowed to. So here's a prime example that I see a lot because infidelity is so huge inside of relationships. But I
Okay.
will hear people say, I have a boundary that says you're not allowed to sleep with anybody else while we're together. And my partner keeps breaking this boundary. Or I have a strict boundary that says no porn and they're watching porn. Or I have a strict boundary that says no, going to the strip club, but he's going to the strip club, no drinking, whatever it is, right? And so what I was pointing out to her was oftentimes when we have boundaries, we see boundaries as something that we put in place for other people. But we're like, you will not cross this line. And this line is imaginary and it's not something they
Yeah.
even consented to. Right.
Yeah,
So
they may know about it. They may not even know about it because you've done it like internally with yourself, but you haven't even told them about it.
yeah, and even when we do tell them about it, we're making it all about them. You will not do this thing, right?
Yeah.
And they draw this line in the sand. But the thing about that is, anytime we make anything about people outside of us, anytime we make anything about being outside of us, my happiness is in the circumstances outside of me. My success is in the circumstances outside of me. The way that I feel about this circumstance has everything to do with whether you're breaking my boundary or not. So
Hmm.
these boundaries are all outside of her. So she's saying, grandpa, you're not going to do this. Mother-in-law, you're not going to do that. Grandma, you're not going to do this. Kids, you're not going to do this. Husband, you're not going to do this. And the thing is when you do that, all the power goes into the other people because
Okay.
everybody has freedom of choice. Everybody
Yep.
has
That's
autonomy.
it. It's freedom of choice.
Yeah, so we can't say I want freedom of choice. I want autonomy to be authentically me, but everybody else needs to fit inside these boxes for me to be comfortable. What boundaries actually are, or they are about ourselves. They are about a line that we won't cross, not
Yeah.
about a line that we lay down for somebody else. So in the situation where it says, you're not allowed to sleep with other people because, I said so as your wife. No, the boundary is I will not be married to somebody who does not, who is not in alignment with monogamy. So the boundary becomes about me and my actions. It becomes about what I will do if my husband's not in alignment with me. So the boundary is for me. I will not stay married to somebody who's doing that. And then if that boundary, or if we're not in alignment with that and that person is choosing something different, then holding the boundary becomes my job to
Yep.
hold that and say, no, I'm putting my foot down, I'm leaving this relationship because we're not. So I had an experience with this. this is when I really learned this. My daughter is 15 years old, and around the time that she was 1 or 2-ish, we started noticing that her grandparents on her dad's side were probably not the most healthy environment for her to be around.
Okay.
And I think I saw it a little bit sooner than he saw it. You know how we are with our parents, we tend to, that leash is pretty long
Yeah, for
because
sure.
we're so used to the way that they act and respond. So I had some red flags go up, but when we split when my daughter was I want to say she was like 11 months old, right? So she was still pretty young. And when we split, I was like, look, you're going to parent how you parent, and I will parent how I parent, and that works really well for me and him. I gotta add, he's honest, he has great integrity, he's a great father, I don't have to worry, so I mean the situation is pretty ideal. But I was like, hey, if he trusts that his parents are somebody that she can be around, I know he loves his daughter, I know he's going to do everything he can to protect her, so I trust him. So if he's going to make a decision that's different than my decision, that's okay. So I give him all that freedom. Well, he started to see over time that this was not, and he started laying boundaries the way that my client was laying boundaries. Father, you will not do this. You will not call my wife names in front of my kids. He was married, but he is still married. You will not, you will not do this. You will not do this in front of Layla. You want, there's all these boundaries, and his parents were breaking those boundaries, and he was getting really frustrated. And he would call me and be like, I don't know what to do. I say that they're not allowed to do this, but they do this thing. And what am I going to do? Right. And so eventually what we had realized was that no matter how many times we brought another option to the table that everybody would be happy with, they were constantly trampling all over the boundaries that we were attempting to set, that he was attempting to set. And so it became a situation where we had to stop placing the boundaries on others, and we had to start holding the boundaries for ourselves. Yeah. It was about what we were going to do, not about what they were going to do, but about what we were going to do in the face of their decisions. And it's not about making their decisions wrong. It's about standing in the integrity of our own decisions. And so we eventually made the decision that it wasn't healthy if they continued to act like that or do those things, that it wasn't a situation that we wanted to expose our daughter to. So we respected our own boundaries by saying we're not going to allow her into their life until they can work through this stuff.
I feel like the frustration when boundaries are not like honored, if you will, isn't necessarily with the person that you're trying to set the boundary against, but it's with yourself.
Yeah, you're mad at yourself. How did I get back in the situation? Why did I allow this? What? Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing that we tend to see the best in people, and that we show up to a situation and we think, well, as long as I just let them know what I need or what I want, they're going to give that to me because they love me and they care about me. But every individual, yes, every individual person is operating from their own unique set of experiences, beliefs, thoughts. I also, while we're on this topic, a lot of people have asked me when they were in situations like this of mulling over whether they need to cut somebody out of their life or not, whether it be permanent or short term. And this is how I explained it to Layla, because she was so small, itty bitty, when she started asking questions about, she remembers everything.
Thinking smart.
She literally has this brain where she remembers everything. I was just watching this movie Lucy yesterday, and she like accesses parts of her brain, and she's like telling her mom how she can remember breastfeeding, right? Layla can describe her grandparents' house to me in detail, and she hasn't been there since she was 1.5 years old. I mean, her memory is pretty extraordinary. So as she started getting older, she started to ask questions. Where are they? Why haven't I seen them? What's going on with them? And it's heartbreaking because on the one side, that you want that relationship, you want her to be close to them, but on the other side, you also recognize that there's some really unhealthy things going on there, and you're protecting our kids is high on the list, right? So one of the ways that I helped explain this to Layla, and the way that I've helped wrap my mind around this, is like we teach in self, there's multiple parts that make up who we are. We are physical beings, but we are emotional beings, but we are mental beings, right? And the same way that if somebody was sick, when we think back to COVID, if somebody had COVID, or if somebody had this deadly disease that's contagious, Would you take your children over there and allow them to be around there? No. It would make sense for you to say, for the time being, until grandma and grandpa are feeling better, until they're no longer contagious, we're going to keep you at home until it's a safe environment. But when it's mental sickness, when it's emotional sickness, we don't hold those same standards. We allow our children to go around people who are emotionally unwell, who are taking those emotions out on our kids, or we're allowing our kids to go around people who are mentally unwell. Sometimes that's us.
Yeah.
Sometimes as parents, we are not emotionally well, we are not mentally well, and we're inflicting that on our kids. Well, in my mind, it was no different than saying, hey, grandma and grandpa are sick right now. And when we're around them,
That's a good analogy.
that sickness can, we might catch some of that sickness. We already started noticing her behaviors were changing with some of the stuff that they were choosing to do, that we were like, we don't want our kid exposed to that.
Yeah.
So but it was all about us holding the boundary. And if we are not able to hold those boundaries, if we find ourselves in these patterns of constantly making up excuses to move our own boundaries, if we're saying, well, yeah, I know this is the third time that he's cheated on me, but this time it's going to be really, really different, because now I have his location, and now I have his, and now now he's working in my job, whatever it is that we think that we've created the boundary strong enough that it's not going to happen again. Like, if we're doing that, what we're doing is we're constantly breaking our own boundaries. Well, who are we going to attract? We attract who we are.
So interestingly, this is, I'm very confident that having mastered my own boundaries is exactly how I met and married my husband. And you know the story. We got married pretty quickly to anybody else's like standards, right?
Which is wild, because your husband, I still, you must have that special juju juice down there, or something, like the fountain of youth or something, because your husband's a very analytical, let me go through the pros and cons, let me sleep on this, let me make sure. And here he is like, yes, Darcy, let's go.
We knew in like the very first month, and we're like, oh, we're gonna have to let everybody else catch up to all of this. But the thing is, there was somebody that I had dated prior to my husband, and I really liked this human. We spent time together. They were really smart. There was all these things, right? But at the end of the day, I had gotten really clear on setting the boundaries of what was important for me, what I was willing to take on, and what I wasn't.
Poor dogs are probably.
Yes, I don't know why I did. What it is about your voice, as soon as your voice, they will be like asleep the entire day, not make a move, not make a sound, and then they hear your voice and they're like, we need to alert you that UPS is here. I know, Amazon, I need to drink a gallon of water. I'm like, no, you don't, stop. So anyway, I had been dating this other human, and I wasn't a spring chicken. I'm like, I'm not dating just to date. I'm dating because I want to find the person that I'm going to spend my life with. And some signs and things had started to come up, and I am very much of the mindset that, like, I don't need to go through your phone. Hard stop. I don't. It's just, I'm not interested in it. If my intuition is telling me that something is going on, something is going on, something is going on, then I'm going to make a decision that I'm going to be okay with that, or I'm not. Because at the end of the day, if I'm going looking for something, I'm going to find it. And I'm not going to question you about it, because if my intuition is telling me everything that it knows without having evidence, then why do I need to like confirm with my brain, like, here is the evidence? I can go ask somebody about it. And like, I know that there are people watching who are dating or have dated, and like, you may ask your partner a question and they may or may not be forthcoming with you.
Yeah.
And now you're just like in this cycle of like, my intuition is hitting, my gut is tore up, like I feel this thing, but I don't know it. No, you already know it. You're not trusting yourself. So why am I going to beat myself up to come forward with evidence I'm not? And so, long story short, something had come up with that human, and it was really crystal clear. And I'm like, there's nothing here for us. I was clear about my intentions, what had happened. And after the fact, I want to say Chris and I were engaged at that point. It doesn't matter. He came back and he's like, I really want to explain. I'm like, there's no need.
Yeah.
There's no need. I don't need to know why. Like, you might need to justify your actions for yourself. It's not important to me. Not because I don't, care about you as a human, or because I'm like, bump that. No, it's because my boundary was more important. My intuition was more important, and feeling confident about, I don't think confidence is the right word, disciplined. I don't know what the word is. Like, I want to feel good about the decisions that I've made, and that's more important to me than you justifying what you did, knowing, the situation and knowing those intentions. So that's on you. Like, now you have to manage the
Yeah.
decisions that you made. That's not for me. So, like, that came up. There's been other instances, but I think in dating it's so easy to see, because dating is kind of crazy, and everybody brings, especially as you get older, people bring forward so much more baggage than when we were like 20,
Mhm,
right? Like,
mhm.
people have been married, they might have kids with multiple people, they might have been, married and divorced, and then, like, or a widow, or like whatever
In
the
a
thing.
situationship for 7 years, that's hidden.
Yeah, in a situationship, or maybe they met this college professor that they never ever actually met in person, but they just had the most intellectual conversations, and that's their dating history. Like, who knows? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The thing, the
I know
thing,
who you're talking about.
yeah, it blows people's mind, mine included. But the thing is, like, it gets harder and harder. So, like, knowing what your boundaries are without knowing and honoring your boundaries without sitting in the fear of, well, if I don't hold this boundary and I go back and they were, let's just say hypothetically that somebody was saying that they were being monogamous, but they were not, and you find out that they were cheating on you or whatever, going back and saying, well, I know this, but maybe I'll just give them another chance because I don't know if I'll ever find another person. Like, that's a fear mentality. And at
Hmm.
the end of the day, like, we're divinely protected. I ain't
Yeah.
worried about that. I would rather manifest the man of my dreams and know that that's what I am pulling into my life than sit in a fear mindset for the rest of my life.
Hmm. There is so much power that comes into making a choice. Like
Yeah.
you said you choose, right? Like we've talked
Mhm.
about this before of when I have all the information, I get to choose. And once I've made a choice, oh, hi, needle buggy coming. He just came up.
It's your
But
voice. It's your voice.
but once you've made your decision, right, if you can honor your decision, there's something so powerful in that.
Mhm.
So sometimes I have had a boundary, and then that boundary is pushed, and it's in pushing that I realize that maybe that isn't an actual boundary that I care about. Maybe I
Yeah.
placed that boundary because of somebody else. So, for example, I used to have a boundary that said I would not date anybody unless we were evenly yoked, meaning we both had the same beliefs, right? Well, my definition on evenly yoked has changed over the years. I no longer see it the way that I saw it. If I'm going to develop and change over the course of my life, my ideas, my belief systems, the way I see things are going to change over and over and over and over and over again. I expect that in myself. I expect that in my partner. So
Yeah.
if I'm choosing my partner today based on what he believes today, I'm either pigeonholing him into an identity that he's never allowed to change from, right? Or I'm setting myself up for failure,
Yeah.
because that's not the type of people that I attract to myself, or people who want to change, because that's how I am. Not
Yeah.
because we're changing because we're bad, but we're growing, we're
We're just evolving.
evolving. Hmm. And so, like, but it's such an eye opener when we can stop and say, like, why am I really doing this? What am I really, why
That's
does
the
my
big
boundary
question.
keep moving, right? Like, I had somebody ask me one time, I was so caught up on this situationship, and I just kept coming back and back to it, and I was like, why did he do this, and why does he do this, and I don't understand, and I'm so confused, and no matter how many times I give him these chances to be the person that I want him to be, he continues to be this other person, and it's all his fault, instead of me going like, whoa, how many times do you have to tell you that this is not what's
Yeah. You got
but
the
I had,
sign, you got the sign, you got the sign.
right?
The boat came by. Did
Another
you
one,
get the
another one.
boat?
I remember sitting in my room. I was like 14. I was trying to decide whether I was going to break up with this boy. And I was like, God, show me a sign. And I was flipping pennies. And like 18 times in a row, it came up as tails. And I was like, that's not even mathematically possible. And I was like, okay, God, just one more time, because I wanted the other answer, right? But I remember my friend asked me, she was like, okay, perfect situation, perfect scenario. What do you really need from him? And I was like, I need him to tell me that he was wrong for treating me this way, that I didn't deserve it. And she goes, okay, and then what? He tells you that, and
Then
then what?
what? That's it. That's it. Then what? He tells you,
And,
he might not even be telling you the truth.
yeah, it does, but it
You're
doesn't
being bold
even
to his face and he may lie about it. And then you're making a decision off of something that's not even reality. So then
yeah.
what?
She was like, what could he say that would make you feel better? And I thought about it and I was like, nothing.
Hmm?
There's nothing that he could say, whether I choose to feel better or not from this situation, whether I choose to see it in a light that serves me instead of a light that brings me down, is all about my perspective. It's
Yep.
the way that I choose to view it. It's my lens. It has nothing to do with him. No matter what he says, even if it's the thing I've been dying to hear, and then what? You don't,
Then what?
it was that question that made me realize that even if he came crawling back and said, I treated you horribly, it's, because I don't know how to emotionally regulate, and I push everybody out, and whatever it is, and he's like, and you always treated me well, and you always loved me, and I should have seen you for that. Like, even if he told me that, she goes, and then what? And I was like, I wouldn't even want to be with him. He's not even the type of person that I want to be with. Like, why do I need this? And when I went internally, it was because I needed
You
to
need
say that
that.
to myself.
Yep.
I needed to look at the younger version of me and say, I'm so sorry I did not love you the way that
Yep.
you needed to be loved. I'm so sorry that I disappointed you time and time again. It didn't show up. I'm so sorry that I pretended that I cared about you. But when push come to shove, I showed up in a different way. I didn't protect you. I was protecting my false beliefs or my false structure or my illusion of safety. Like, I wasn't choosing you. And that's why men can't choose you, right? And realize that this is an internal journey. This has nothing to do with the people around you are just, they're just energetic vibrational matches to you. So when these people around you are not in alignment with you, you get to say, like, it's because I'm not in alignment with me. I'm not
I like
standing.
to think of it like you're playing a game. It's like the game of life, right? But you're playing a game and you think that you're playing Monopoly, and then all of a sudden,
Did you raise your hand? You got a question?
no, it's this thing, it picks up like when I
Yo,
go
you
to
put your
certain
hand up.
things, remember? See them? Yeah. Okay, it does all these crazy things. Anyway, I like to think of it like a game. You think you're playing the game of Monopoly, and then all of a sudden you realize you're in Jumanji, and you're like, "What the heck?" It's because that's what you're attracting. So you need to like be cognizant of like how did you call in Jumanji, and how do you get out of the jungle and back to the Monopoly board where you wanted to be in the first
Yeah.
place?
Yeah. What game are you even playing?
Yeah, what
Like,
game are you playing?
are you playing to have the best, most romantic relationship in the world, to have the best love story in the world? Or are you playing for the drama series?
I
Like,
don't know. I'm playing to have The Rock show up and then Kevin Hart on the side for comedic relief, and I would love to play that game. My husband is like on a mission to look like The
they
Rock.
can
I'm
both
like,
kiss you
yeah.
at the same time.
Oh, you're the worst.
You're two different head spaces. That's another episode.
That's
Well,
another
yeah, so I wanted to share that. That was just on my mind today. And it's been really cool to see how just this was a couple, probably about a week and a half ago, but just to see the change in my client already once she started owning her own power and
Yeah,
realizing that, you feel so out of control when you put everything into everybody else's hands.
that's what I think about when you're talking about boundaries, and what the realization was that I had to come to myself and kind of working through these things, especially with relationships, is like you're putting all of the onus on them to tell you, basically to tell you how to feel, right? Like, give me this answer, so and then I will feel this, this or that. But then if they don't give you the answer that you're looking for, and you didn't get the feeling that you wanted, now it's almost like your emotions are at the mercy of this human. And what's even worse is that your emotions are manifesting like 24/7, right? So then
Mhm.
you're like cutting your manifestation abilities down. You're not in charge of your own emotions. Like, it just feels so like, ah, yuck.
Yeah. It's like when people are like, I'm manifesting stuff, but it's not really what I want. And I'm like, well, where in your life are you self-sacrificing and
Mhm.
compromising? Like,
Yep.
you're an energetic match for what it is that you're pulling in. Right. Well, we are always the answer. Internally looking at ourselves is always the answer. It's just the mirror. And we get to say, holy crap, this thing that's driving me crazy about this person is reflecting back that there's something in my energetic makeup that's making that energy comfortable to stick around here? And what do
Yeah.
I need to shift in me? So
I feel like we probably have an episode that comes back around on manifestation and working
I
towards.
literally just thought that. I was like, we need to talk about manifestation and what we're talking about when we say your energetic makeup, you know,
Yeah.
your vibrational offering. Like, it's really important to understand those things changed my life. Understanding those things drastically changed my life.
The
So
work is almost done for the up level boot camp.
I'm so excited.
So it'll be live for people, but I think that there's like probably a master class we can do there. I would love to. I'd love that. I want to go back. I really want to go back and watch The Secret. I think I've watched it like 187 bazillion times, but I love it so much.
That
It's
was
it's so
that was
relevant.
my door to manifestation, was watching The Secret. And I remember it took Melissa forever. Melissa was trying to convince me to watch that forever, and she finally convinced me to watch it. And then as soon as it was done, I watched it a second time. Like, I was like, rewind, we're gonna play this again. So
I used
but
to play the audio in my car. Like a long time ago when I sold insurance and I would like have to drive from house to house, I would play The Secret. It was like I'd play The Secret and then I'd play Zig Ziglar and then I'd play The Secret and I'd play Zig Ziglar. People are gonna be like, who's Zig Ziglar? He's like the salesman of all time.
yeah.
Very old school. But anyway, yeah, I always had these like wicked results and people would blow their mind. They're like, you shouldn't be able to do that. And I'm like, well, I did. So what are you gonna do about
Our
it?
minds, our minds can do anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaking spectacular. It's like Chat GPT. You were talking about Chat GPT earlier, and how the reason why it works so good for you is because you've programmed it to
Yeah.
work for you. So our brain is the same way. We get to program our brain to work for us
Yeah.
or work against us. And
Yep.
when we've stepped into a life having a brain that's been programmed by everybody around us, who now, as we're older, we're looking back at those people going, you did not have your shit figured out. I thought you were superheroes and you had everything figured out, but you didn't. And you're the one that programmed my brain. So now I get to go in there and I get to reprogram. I get to, get some virus software and get rid of all the
Clean
things
it
that are
out,
not
man.
serving me. And start to fill it up with good stuff. And listening to positive stuff like that is such a great way of starting to reframe the way that your mind thinks. You're putting in the data that it's going to pull from to serve you, instead of talking you out of all the things you want to do in life or talking you out of your power. So pretty cool stuff, man. I can't wait to talk about the manifestation piece.
That'll be a good one. Okay. Love you. Mean it. Bye.